West Virginia mountain melody. There's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies.
Welcome to another edition of Around and About the Clarksburg History Museum. And my guest today is a musician, author, teacher, square dance caller, champion fiddler. What else can I tag on you, Mack?
That about covers it.
We have with us today Mack Samples, and Mack continues to perform and highlight old-time music in our area. And Mack, thank you so much for coming and doing our podcast today.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Now, we're recording this in the fall of 2025, and I know you just recently celebrated a birthday. How old are you?
I was 86, June 26th.
86 years young.
Right.
You've got the energy of a much younger man, let me tell you.
I still do everything I've always done.
That's good. That's good. So I want to talk a little bit about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born in a little community called Corton, West Virginia, which no longer exists, but Corton is 27 miles from Charleston, right up Elk River, and 7 miles from Clendenin. So Clendenin was, if I had a hometown, that's where it'd be. But I just grew up along the river up on a little farm. And it's been a problem everywhere I go. Where you from? I usually end up saying Charleston because people have heard of Charleston. But there was a Hope gas station there, about a half a mile from the house where my dad worked all his life.
Oh, okay. So he worked for Hope Gas.
And he had a little farm there, and so we lived pretty good.
What did he do for Hope Gas?
Well, started out, he unloaded the cement when they built it in 1926.
Wow.
And he just worked himself up, and he was the engineer in those buildings, finally a shift foreman. But he could walk to work, it was just a wonderful place, wonderful for him to find a job that close to his farm,
And how many acres of farm did he have?
Well, it was kind of an interesting thing. The farm belonged to his dad, who settled there in 1896. And his dad had 8 kids. Well, 3 of his boys settled around him. He gave them a piece of property enough for a house and a garden and all. I don't remember what the acreage was, but everybody had a little sub-farm on there. But it was kind of like a commune. They shared the pasture fields, the hay fields, all that sort of thing.
Did your dad do the haystacks?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the old hard way of farming.
We put up hay with horses, which nobody understands anymore, but no tractors at all. Grandpa didn't believe in that. He didn't even own a truck. So,
what was your father's name?
My father's name was Lawrence.
Lawrence.
And his middle name was Melvin, which was Grandpa's name, Melvin. But I spent an awful lot of time with my grandpa. He was 200 yards away and very entertaining guy to be around. In my teenage years, I spent a lot of time working with him, putting up hay, working in his garden. He had this big cornfield. I hoed corn for 10 cents a row. He paid me.
Did you grow wheat down that way?
No. He grew a big cornfield and, of course, did some of it to his horse, but he had an electric grinder where he could make meal and supplied the whole neighborhood with meal all the time. So,
have milk cows? I
suppose. Yeah. Had 3 milk cows in that pasture field. And I escaped that pretty much. I had 4 older brothers, and they did all the milking, and they all left home and went to the military for years. But anyway, I only milked 6 months, and he sold a cow.
You lucked out.
Did not make me a bit mad.
Those days of farming are long gone, I think. The Amish, I think, do a little bit of that still.
You know what my brothers always said, and they were right. You had to milk. I had to milk before I went to school. And he said, no matter how much you wash your hands and face, you still smell like a cow.
That's true. Now, how about your mother? What was her name?
Her mother was Kennedy, and she was born in 1908 in a place called Broad Run, which is a big, long hollow, and her dad had that farm in the head of that hollow. And that was a very influential thing on my life because they lived until 1955. They didn't have any electricity. I was 16 years old when they got electricity. No road into there. You had to walk in about the last mile. He lived entirely off the land, didn't work for anybody, and 46 acres, raised a huge garden, and 2 of his daughters never left home and lived there all their lives. And I mean, they put up food like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, I bet their cellar was full.
Tell everybody he didn't have any money, but he ate better than any of us. he did.
That's the truth.
He didn't know what
really.
a sandwich was. He ate 3 meals a day.
It's
but-
amazing what all they could do in a day's
Oh,
time.
yeah.
back
And I loved to go there in the summertime and stay. I always went hay time and helping me hay after I grew up a little bit. And I loved to stay there. It was so peaceful and quiet. And
Great
they
life.
were all very super religious. They used to almost scare me at night. They'd all get down and pray, and kind of frightening for me. But that was the background. They were, of course, they were Kennedys. They were all Irish. My dad's people all come from Scotland, a place called Blackhurst, Scotland, wherever that is. But anyway, when I had my DNA test, I was 97% British Isles.
Well, you are a native son of there then.
No,
How did you get interested in the fiddle? Did your parents play? or-
Right. I think you and I talked about this briefly before, but just about everybody I knew played music from the time I could hear. Mom played a little bit of fiddle, and Daddy played a pretty good banjo. He played the old two-finger style. And uncles and aunts and everybody came in the door, played music just about. And one of the interesting things I like to tell about that, we had an old country doctor who came to the house. Somebody was sick and delivered all of us, by the way, at home. But anyway, when he'd come in, he'd chew tobacco and he'd sit down in front of the fire and spit and look at my dad and say, "Now we better play a tune before we do any business here." And they'd bring him a fiddle and he'd play with my dad. So my point is, I just surrounded with it forever. And I went over to Canada, they all played music. And they had a neighbor, I couldn't see the neighbor up on top of the hill who played music, and they would come down and play with them in the parlor. And there was nothing I could do but play music.
And every one of your brothers learned to play too?
Well, oddly enough, the older brothers, the 4 older boys, are almost a different family from the three younger boys. But all great singers. One of them sang in the quartet all the time, and all great singers, but none of them ever learned to play anything, which I thought was very strange.
Yeah.
But when I was probably 12 or 13, I found an old guitar in the closet that didn't have any strings on it, and I dragged it out there, and my dad strung it up for me, and I could almost play as soon as I picked it up, just from watching,
That's amazing.
all those years.
You had the natural talent for that.
Well, and also, I heard it and watched all the time. And, of course, they showed me a few chords, and I started singing and playing with records that we had. The older boys all loved music, and they brought in a lot of 78 records, Jimmy Rogers, the Carter family, that simple stuff that I could play with. So there wasn't anything that, I was told to do or anything. I just kind of did it. And I could sit in the front porch swing and sing as loud as I want to, but nobody could hear me.
Did you have square dances back in your
Yeah, sure did have square dances. I didn't get into that till I was a teenager, and a historic event happened that got me into it. I think everybody I've ever talked to had square dancing in junior high school.
Yeah.
Even today they do.
grade school? I remember them teaching square
And
dancing.
when I was growing up, it was in the 8th grade physical education. That was a segment of the class, and it was absolutely awful. They had organ music or something, accordions or something. The lady didn't know what she was doing, bless her heart, and I dreaded that every day. But then, that was in 8th grade. I guess probably my sophomore year, 2 of my brothers came home on leave from the military. And my brothers, by the way, my brothers and me together have 57 years military service.
Oh, well, thank you. What were you in the Navy?
I was in the Navy.
You were
They
in the
were all in the Army and Air Force. But anyway, to get back to my point, they took me to a big beer hall when they were home that was having a square dance. And I walked in that door, and there this band was fiddle, banjo, guitar, and bass playing music I loved. And I watched those people dance, and everybody step dancing over the little step. And from that moment on, I was hooked with square dancing.
Now, is there a difference between square dancing styles?
Oh, yes. Not styles. As far as I know, the people classify it 2 ways. They call one of it Western square dancing, and it's not necessarily out west. It's here too, but where people dress up and all dress alike, and the girls have gingham dresses, the guys have white belts. You've probably seen them on television.
Yeah, like
or
on
even
the
Nashville,
Grand
you see
Opry,
them.
they used to
Yeah,
do
a lot
that.
of those, and they tend to be cloggers more than square dancers. But at Nashville, I meant. But anyway, and it's very complicated. That kind of square dancing is. You got to really listen and pay attention to get where you're going to go, because it's very fast. And they brag about it, that if you know how to Western square dance, you can do it anywhere in America because it's the same everywhere, exactly. The old-time square dancing, which is what I call this, or traditional square dancing, everybody wears whatever they were wearing that day, and it's very simple. There's nothing complicated about it. I can teach people to do it in 15 minutes and do all the time. But the emphasis on these people is what you do with your feet, not getting where you're supposed to be in a hurry. Step dancing, I called it. And some people call it flat footing around nowadays. And I like the guy down in Cleveland was the best step dancer I ever saw, a guy named Red Truman. He just called it dancing. That's what he called it. But anyway, as they go through these simple routines, they flat foot dance or step dance. And that's what I like to see and do. It's a beautiful thing when I call it, look out and see people know how to dance, doing their step and going through the routine. So I've been hooked on that since I was 16, I guess.
Do you find that that's a dying art, though, in the world now? You think it's still growing?
Traditional square dancing is very big right now. I just got a note this morning about going to have a big one in Elkins, and which I can't go to, but anyway, it's made, in my lifetime, it's made a comeback. It died, I guess. One thing I remember, I left home in 57 and went to the Navy, and of course it was a big thing in, and when I came back, I couldn't find one anywhere. When I was a student at Glenville, a girl asked me in the union when somebody said you could square dance, and I said, well, I used to. Hadn't done it for 4 years. So she took me one out of the beer joint outside of Glenville, and then I learned that Central West Virginia area square dancing was really going on. That was 1964. And then now, the West Virginia Folk Festival is the third weekend in June for 75 years. And I call square dances there every year. I look out on that floor and I'll see 16, 17 sets of dancers on that dance floor. 4 couples to a set. Huge, huge. And they just keep building the floor bigger and bigger.
Well, that's good news.
And then for 21 years, I taught 4-H'ers square dance at Jackson's Mill. They have a dance weekend, still do every March. Kids come from all over the state. I mean, yes, every county. They bust them in there, bring them in bands. And I spent 2 days teaching those kids to dance. And sometimes 400 of them would come there. One time we had to move some of them into another building. There's so many of them. But anyway, all those kids know how now.
That's great. Because the younger, you have to keep it going. With
yeah, there's somebody still doing it. I quit, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago. But the direct answer to your question is it's still very much alive. And
I've heard stories in my family history. My great-great-grandfather played the fiddle, back up a holler.
Yeah.
And when they would have square dances there, and they would go on for days. My great uncle would tell me he was a little boy, and he'd just lay in the corner on a coat and sleep while everybody went into the night dancing and playing, and it was a big ordeal. My
dad talked all the time about they all went to Grandma Smith's, which was about a mile up the road, and they were musicians. And of course, we never got into this, but there was religious opposition to dancing.
I want to ask you about that.
All right.
What is the thing about the fiddle not being allowed in a church in the early days?
Well, the fiddle is known in folklore circles as the devil's box because it inspires people to dance and makes them want to dance. And so my point I was going to make is that lots of people were opposed to it, but there were some sections, families, who didn't. And Grandma Smith was one of those. So everybody went to Grandma Smith's and musicians would come. And there's another place my dad called the Head of Blue Creek, which was a Hamrick family, I guess was the big place everybody went that were a part of the Samples clan. And my mom's brother went there, and that was 4 or 5 mile walk for him. But he played the fiddle, and he went over there. And as I said, his family was very religious, and they were very much opposed to that.
So you saw that in your lifetime?
Oh, yeah. Mom was never allowed to go. And then when I was in high school, I went to Old Fundamental Methodist Church, a mile from the house there, all my life. But anyway, the preachers would just absolutely rant about dancing. I mean, there was no question about what sin was because they told you all the time. But he preached about you can't be dancing with somebody and think you're going to heaven. And he told the majorettes in the audience, you can't be going around to dress hiked up to your end and think you're going to go to heaven.
What times
the old fundamental Methodists, I loved them. But getting back to what we were talking about, dancing was very much frowned upon and still is. in Clay County, some of the old fundamental churches still won't believe in it. And my grandma Kennedy, my mom's mom, said it's not the dancing that we're against; it's what the dancing leads to.
Yes, that's right.
And that's very true. Can't deny that.
So a little bit about the fiddle.
Okay.
I suppose where it came from, correct me if I'm wrong, but is the British Isles when the settlers first came over?
The Scottish and Irish brought it in here.
When that first came over to America, those early settlers playing that music, were they playing their traditional tunes, or did they change
They were
them?
playing when they came in here what they knew in Ireland, but the people who lived here, when they picked that up, they put a kind of a little different style to it. Same songs. Think like Soldier's Joy, which is a very, very much played tune in this area, came out of there, but the Americans put a different lick to it some way or another. But of course, the reason that, as my dad always says, that when he was young, that's the only music you heard was fiddle and banjo.
Yeah.
Because the fiddles were easy to carry when they came over and they brought them, and the banjo you could make pretty easy. Yesterday, I was at Webster County High School, and for the people I was talking to, I played a homemade fiddle. It was made in West Virginia, and plays well, and still does. But anyway, what we did in the Appalachians is we kind of modified what the Irish did, the Scotch-Irish, Scotland or Ireland. They dance, they do the Irish flings and all those dances, and we took those dances and we just made them a little looser.
But they would still be recognizable over the British Isles.
And they still square dance in Ireland almost like we do.
Are there different styles of fiddle playing?
Well, now this is just Mack's opinion.
Okay.
Everybody doesn't agree, but I say there's good fiddlers and there's good dance fiddlers. Now I separate them because somebody can win every fiddle contest in the country and doesn't play well for a square dance because you've got to have a driving lick when you're playing square dancing, and not everybody can do it. And I have learned the West Virginia fiddlers are about the best at it, where I've ever been. And I've called square dancers from North Carolina all the way up to West Virginia, and there's some good fiddlers down there. But there's some here that's got that drive that I like to hear when I'm calling.
Well, you're one of them, Mack. I mean, when you play the fiddle, I remember up at the Jubilee, you and your brothers, the Samples brothers, playing. As soon as they'd hear you start to play your fiddle, those people would swarm into that barn like bees into a hive. It was amazing. You blew the roof off that place.
Well, I'm a classic example of what I just say. I'm not a great fiddler, a contest fiddler, but I got a kick.
You do. And you know how to rile them up. I almost think that a fiddler back in the day was almost like a rock star.
Yeah. Oh, they were. The guy, that dance I told you about, that my brothers took me to, a guy named Mike Humphreys playing fiddle, and my gosh, he's a major league fiddler, And there just wasn't anybody like him around. And so there is styles. He was a dance fiddler, Mike was.
Well, if you'll let me read this little article I found out of the Clarksburg paper about a fiddler, I thought this kind of tells you how much they were thought of.
Right.
This from the Clarksburg Telegram, May 27th, 1906. Irvin Jackson, the old-time violinist with a good war record, gave a largely attended violin recital on Monday afternoon at the Thompson Music Store, which proved a feature of Circus Day. Fiddler Jackson used to play for the farmers at the renowned meetings of the West Virginia Central Mechanical and Agricultural Society. Years ago, before the Midway came into fashion and a bunch of countrymen, all of his admirers recognized him as soon as they spied him on the street in Clarksburg. They made one grand rush toward him, and they carried him up on their shoulders into the music store, which in a jiffy became stifling crowded. But that did not deter the 71-year-old fiddler from manipulating the violin in a manner that pleased all. Now, I'm going to ask you if you recognize any of these tunes he played. Among the pieces executed were Pop Goes the Weasel, Turkey in the Straw, Money Musk, Fisher's Hornpipe, Devil's Dream, Rocky Road to Dublin, and Maryland, My Maryland. Mr. Jackson climaxed on Dixie.
I knew every one of those tunes.
So they saw this little old fiddler coming down the street, and they took him up on their shoulders and carried him into that music store. He was a rock star to them.
Yeah, he was.
That's pretty amazing.
A lot of people, I told this kids yesterday at Webster County High School, what people don't realize, and the only music those people heard was live music. there was no recorded music, so all they heard was what was right in front of them. And my dad told me he was born in 1903, and he said he never heard recorded music until he was 17 years old.
That's amazing.
only
So that's
music
what they were their heroes.
And they learned from each other.
Yeah.
But that's all there was.
And you're carrying that on, Mack, do you run into many younger players that want to learn how to play the old-timey fiddle?
They're coming around. One of the best dance fiddlers I ever heard is in Elkins, named Jesse Milnes. I don't know how old Jesse is, but he's a young guy. And then there's a girl and making big noise now in West Virginia on the fiddle named Tessie McCoy. And she's probably in her 20s and wins every fiddle contest she ever gets in.
If someone is listening and they want to get involved and learn how to play the old-time fiddle, where can they go to do that?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know. I think my advice, I get to ask that question a lot, is get your fiddle and go to festivals like Glenville, because there's always people there playing, and you can listen and play with them what you know how to do. And that's kind of the way I learned, just listening to other people.
Now, your son plays with you, Grayson.
Grayson is a guitar player and singer. He does not play the fiddle, but Grayson is a very well-known lounge and honky-tonk musician around this area and out of this area, actually. He plays snowshoe and Clondalkin and all over the place.
So did he learn from listening to you and your brothers?
I'm sure he did.
You never taught him how, he just knew how to do it?
No, in fact, I was stunned when he was in high school. He came home and said his band won a talent show. I didn't even know he played.
He is very talented, very talented.
He plays harmonica and plays the guitar and sings, and he plays like you take instead of a fiddle break in between his courses, he just plays harmonica. But he does a good job and gets a lot of gigs.
Now, when you were starting, what made you and your brothers form the Samples Brothers Band?
Well, I back up a little bit. I started out in music by myself.
Oh, okay.
I was a folk singer. I played the guitar and sang, and I sang the old folk songs like Barbara Allen and Troubadour Song and Banks of the Ojai and things like that by myself. And this is right when I came out of the Navy. I went to Glenville because the folk festival was there, and I said, well, I know how to do this stuff, I can play here. So I started there by myself. But my two younger brothers were playing guitar when I came back, better than I was, really, a better guitar player than I was. So the first time we ever played together was at the folk festival.
Oh, okay.
And we had a very nice, unique sound with those three guitars. We capoed them in different places to get a different tone. And people really liked what we were doing, that trio. So that's how it got to be.
What year was that you got started?
That would have been 60, probably about 65, 66. They were both still in college.
That was sort of the height of the
Hootenanny area.
The folky.
The folk minstrel revival.
Yeah.
Kingston Trio and all that. It was very popular. So I jumped right into that, of course, since I could do it. So I guess the Jubilee is where we really caught on. We were first just the three of us, and we were just playing those three guitars. And then Buddy Griffin came along, who died this past year. And Buddy Griffin was a nationally known bluegrass fiddler from Braxton County, and he played with every named big bluegrass band there is. And he was standing up there listening to us play, and he said, "I'd like to play with you guys." So we said, "Well, go ahead." So he went on stage with us, and boy, this really added something to the band, So Brother Ted also played banjo in addition to guitar. So then it became me on guitar, and my brother Roger on guitar, and Buddy on fiddle, and my brother Ted on banjo. That was the original Samples Brothers.
How many years were you together as a band?
As a band, I'd have to add up, but the band that became known as the Samples Brothers Band was 40 years, and it just dissipated this year. And same guys, same songs. We never learned anything new.
Did you ever play in little, roadside
Not much.
honky-tonk?
Not much. I avoided the beer halls because they got kind of rough sometimes. And we played one in Dill. Dill, you probably don't know. It's in the way back end of Clay County. And Brother Ted was teaching school there. And he got us this gig at this big beer joint down there. We went in there, and I couldn't describe it to you, but the guy knocked all the microphones over, some guy drunk.
Did they have chicken wire up to protect you on the stage?
No, they didn't. No, they didn't bother us any much, except the guy did come up and knock all the mics over. But I just didn't want to get into that.
I don't blame you for that.
We pretty much confined ourselves to festivals. And then in those younger days, we did a lot of college concerts all over the place, even the University of South Carolina and Fairmont and Shepherd and, of course, Glenville many times.
Did you ever come to Clarksburg, Salem, or anything like that?
As far as I know, we were never near Clarksburg.
Really?
Nobody ever asked.
Oh,
I
gosh.
never ever tried to book the band. Somebody called, I'd call the band and say, "Can you guys get there that night?" If they said yes, we'd go do it. But I never tried to get an agent and get a book us at all.
You made CDs, though. You did a lot of that,
Yeah, we did
didn't
make,
you?
first we made a cassette tape and then made 3 CDs after that. But Buddy Griffith is responsible for that first CD because he kept telling us, "You guys need to make a tape." And of course he knew how, because he played with all those bands. And we kept saying, "Now who's going to buy something we would make, you know?" He said, "You might be surprised." And we were. We sold thousands of them. We made that cassette tape. I'm telling you, we couldn't keep it fly of them. And oddly enough, even when we play today, we still play that same stuff.
Well, it doesn't get old. I mean, you love it.
No. Now, I will say this. The audience for that music has shrunk
Yeah.
in recent years.
I've noticed it at the Jubilee.
Well, at festivals, when we played in the 60s and 70s, my God, I played in Union Grove, North Carolina. There must have been 3,000 or 4,000 people there, you know, hooping and hollering and carrying on. And now most places we've got 100 or less.
I think it kind of goes in waves.
Yeah,
though,
it
don't
does.
you,
It
Mac?
goes in
Like
waves.
kind of like bluegrass. I think they were hot, and then rock and roll came in, and they kind of hit a plateau there for a while.
Let me give you an eyewitness account of that. In 1957, right before my senior year, I was playing a square dance band at the same big beer hall where I saw my first dance. Mike Humphreys playing fiddle. And what they would do, they'd dance to the jukebox, old country songs, mostly slow dancing. And then they'd unplug the jukebox. The band would play, and they'd square dance a couple of times, plug the jukebox back in. And then in 1956, there Carl Perkins and Bill Haley and the Comets and those people come along that rock and roll, and nobody wanted to unplug a jukebox anymore. I saw it with my own eyes. That's why I wrote the first book, Doodle Bug. I saw it with my own eyes, a rock and roll revolution, and we lost our job.
For a while.
For a while, yeah. For a while.
Really, early rock and roll was sort of like country in a way.
It was just country
like
with a little
honky-tonk music.
black kick to it, you know, black blues.
Yeah.
But Carl Perkins, you know, he did blue suede shoes before Elvis did.
Oh, yeah.
And Carl, when that played on the jukebox, now people wanted to dance. They didn't quite know what to do to it, but they caught on. And one thing I noticed, the girls did it better. They had a better rock step than men. But I became a pretty good rock and roller.
You did?
In my time, yeah. When my 4 years in the Navy, I did a lot of rock and rolling in the bars now.
Really? I didn't know that part of you.
Oh, yeah. I love to dance to it, and I like to play it a little bit, but I'm not very good at it. But I tell my wife all the time, and she knows that in the 2 years I spent in Japan, I danced just about every night. Just about every night.
Did you ever do live radio back in the day when they used to have radio programs?
Matter of fact, we played a Western station, Thelma Wood.
WHAW.
Thelma tells you this all the time. She tells all her friends all the time, the day after we got married, I came home, I played on the radio in Weston.
You did? Oh,
We came over, me and a couple other guys, not my band. That's before I had a band, when we first got married there. But anyway, we played on that station, and we did several public radio performances after we got known.
I interviewed Lou Dobbins, who was a local radio
I know
guy.
about Lou.
We had a real good conversation about early radio, how you had the live performers there. Like, I'm going to ask you, Cherokee Sue. Do you remember Cherokee Sue?
Remember Cherokee Sue? Yes, I do.
It's amazing the crowds that Little John and Cherokee Sue would draw.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
They were like rock stars in their day, too.
In their day, yes. But back when I went to grade school, those little bands came to the court in grade school and played out of Charleston. There's a band called Cap Anley and Flip. And they had a fiddler they called Natchez the Indian, who wore this headband and had long black hair. He wasn't Indian, but he wasn't really an Indian. But he was a very good fiddler. And they would pack that little old schoolhouse when they came out of Charleston up there.
Another one back then, Buddy Starcher.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Buddy Starcher.
Tell a little bit, do you know a little bit about Buddy Starcher, just so people can appreciate?
Yeah, Buddy Starcher is a West Virginia boy, I think out of Nicholas County, if I remember right.
Yeah.
I think so. But he had a radio show in Charleston for years, and then a television show on Channel 8 for a morning show for a long time, too. But he was strictly a country singer. He wasn't old time and had a pretty good band. And his big tune was, I'll Still Write Your Name in the Sand. You know, he did that all the time. And he would also tour the rural schools with his band. But he was and wrote some pretty good stuff.
And Grandpa Jones was actually a local performer on the radio stations here in Clarksburg and Fairmont, all over. So I meant to ask you earlier, tell the difference between a banjo, claw hammer, and like Earl Scruggs.
Yeah, okay, well, go all the way back. When my dad was playing banjo, he played with his thumb and one finger, what they call now, scholars now call two-finger banjo. And he would pick the melody mostly with that finger right there coming up on the strings. And that top string is just a drone string, which was added to the banjo by Appalachians. But he played the melody and then that drone string up there to kind of keep the rhythm going. And he and his uncle, Albert Smith, both played that way. And when they played together, it sounded pretty good.
Is that sort of the style like Grandpa Jones and
I'm
Green
about
Bean?
to get to that
Okay,
now.
that's even an earlier style than that.
Right.
Okay.
See, that's the old two-finger banjo. But now Mom played what they call drop thumb, where you get that finger going down, the melody going down, and it almost holds your thumb on the top string. Every now and then you'll pick that. And that's what now they call claw hammer or drop thumb. My dad called it thumping the banjo is what he called it.
So how your dad used to play, would that have been how they did it over in Ireland or the older country there?
I couldn't answer that question.
I've never heard of that style.
No. But now very, very few people play that style now. I can do it a little bit and do it at home. I don't perform with it. But Earl Scruggs then added the third finger, so he's picking with two fingers down to getting the melody down there, which is making it sound a lot fuller, you know. And Earl Scruggs he's a phenomenal person, he was.
Yeah.
He just come up and blew everybody away.
I want to recommend, I watched a documentary on YouTube the other night called High Lonesome.
Yeah.
And it was a very good documentary explaining all these different styles and how they came to be.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me. And how talented people were with no training. They just learned on their own.
Nobody I know reads music. Nobody.
Before we end, I want to ask you about your books.
Okay.
You're an author. How many books have you?
I have got 10 on the market, and I've got another one right now at the publisher, and I'm going to go talk to him about that tomorrow. But anyway, I've had 10 books, and all of them except one have been pretty good sellers. And they're basically about West Virginia life in one form or another, except one. I wrote about my experiences in Japan for a year. But they're basically, I told this group I talked to yesterday, I write a story. They're mostly novels, but I try to paint a picture of what life was like at that time. That's what I try to do. I want if somebody picks up Doodlebug and reads it, I want them to know what life for a teenager was in 1956 and 57 in West Virginia. You know? And I try to do that with all my books. And I did 2 ghost story books where I just collected ghost stories mostly from my mother and the people around her who knew her. And then I wrote one book, which is the only controversial book I wrote, I guess. It's called The Dark Hollows of West Virginia, where I pointed out how this is a story. I mean, I made up a story, but how the civic leaders in these little communities have a dark side, all of them. You know, they're not what they really say they are. But the interesting thing was, it's a novel, but everybody read it said, I knew everybody in that book.
I think you could say that any community you go to.
But I was inspired to write that book when I was extension agent down at Clay, and my office was right next door to the prosecuting attorney's office. I heard things out in that hallway I didn't know existed. You know, people beating up their kids and beating up their wife.
There's all kind of dark stories.
Oh.
But that's anywhere you go, Mack,
I guess so. And that's right. I think that's why that book sold really well, and I think that's why.
That's why one of our most popular exhibits here at the Clarksburg History Museum is the Harry Powers murder farm. That just draws people. They're fascinated with that.
And I wanted to say one thing about my first book, Doodlebug, came out in 1994. That book still sells.
Now, how do they get your book? If someone wants it?
Well, I had publisher in Charleston. His address is West Virginia Books at westvirginiabooks.com. You know, that's all there is to it. Or you can get his phone number too. But he distributes them to the bookstores, and he does very well in state parks and craft stops, wherever.
And you can go on Amazon and get.
Oh yeah, you can get
your books
you
on
can
Amazon.
Get Amazon too.
How many have you authored? How many do you have out there? That's
well, there's
installed?
10 books out there, and some of them will sell when they first come out. Then you don't hear much about them, but some of them have stuck around. And Doodlebug is the one that stuck around, and I just sold 25 of those in Ritchie County not very long ago. And I still promote it because I think it's a very good depiction of what was going on in the 50s when the rock and roll came around, and how young men during that time actually lived where I lived. And we were a pretty rowdy bunch. We really were. My brothers and I weren't exactly Sunday school boys. We really were.
Rebels without a cause,
And
huh?
we went to Sunday school, but it didn't have much effect on us, on our behavior, I don't think. But I think my new book, which is at the publishers right now, it's called The School Marm, and it's about a West Virginia one-room public school teacher in the 30s. I really had to do a lot of research in the 30s to make sure I didn't mess up my facts. But anyway, that is my attempt to do what the publisher asked me to do. He said, I think, Mack, you could write a trashy novel.
So this is what we could look forward to in 2026?
Yeah, it should probably be out this fall.
Okay.
This publisher, Charles, he's a small, what they call small cap publisher, publishes 4 or 5 books a year sometimes. But he's a great guy to work with, and all I do is just give him the manuscript. He takes care of it and doesn't charge me anything to get it on the market. And then I have to buy them back from him at a very reduced rate. That's how he makes money off of me.
Do you enjoy doing writing as much as you do playing music?
No, I don't like anything as much as I do playing music.
That's it.
But writing is a good thing for me to do in the wintertime. I'm an outside person. When it's warm, I'm outside working, doing something. But in the winter, I kind of get right out of something to do.
Now, you live in Lost Creek, but you have a farm, what, in Clay County? Or
Braxton
County.
Yeah.
Okay, and you still farm that?
I don't really farm it, but I take care of it. Do a lot of weed eating and that kind of stuff down there.
Oh, that's constant.
And keeping the house up. In fact, this coming weekend, we're gonna rebuild a stone wall down there on the farm. So, and that's the kind of stuff I like to do when I can get out and do it. But in the winter, I get confined to quarters. I get bored. That's when I first started writing.
Well, I'll have to see if we could get some of your books for our gift shop here to sell.
I can do that. He can peddle them through me, and I can bring them up to you.
Okay,
In fact,
yeah.
I'm going to go see him tomorrow if you want some.
Please do. I mean, we have several books in our gift shop here, and we'd love to have some of your books to sell. So
the books, it's a funny thing about a book, and not just my books, but all books, sometimes you'll get a big push at the front, and then it kind of dies, and then they'll resurface. That Doodlebug has done that a couple of times.
Maybe there'll be a film one day, Mack.
I'll tell you the book that should be a movie is the one I talked about. I did yesterday with this class in Braxton County, 23 shots. It would be an excellent movie. And somebody tried to make a movie out of it back sometime, and it's a mess. I mean, they didn't get the story right or anything else.
But you were telling me these students at that high school want to do a play.
Yeah, they want to write a skit. Now, of course, that probably won't amount to anything with kids, but this book is about West Virginia's had a famous face-to-face shootout, almost as big as the OK Corral, over a little teeny town in Webster County called Boggs. And 5 guys, face-to-face, 3 on one side and 2 on the other, shot it out at a post office, face-to-face. All of them got hit, 2 of them got killed.
When was this?
1892. And I researched that and made a story out of it, made a novel out of it. But I went down, what happened was, just compress this real quick, but 2 guys was wanted in Wise County, Virginia, and they fled up here to Boggs in Webster County, hiding from the law. But a posse came after them. It's 2 brothers that were here, and 3 guys in the posse came after them. And so I went down and did the background and started the story in Wise, Virginia, and traced their journey up to here, and how they came up here, and just made a story out of it.
Oh, yeah.
And then I traced how the posse got formed and how they came up here and how they got here. The most interesting thing I found is at that time there was no railroad that came in this part of the country in Webster County. So those 2 brothers hopped a freight train when they rode to Bluefield, and from Bluefield on up, you had to walk or ride horses. And they didn't know where it was. They just asked as they come. But anyway, that would make an excellent story.
Yeah, that would.
Excellent story. And wouldn't even begin to know how to get a movie made from how you get somebody to do a movie on it. But I've always thought, a lot of people have said that I made a good movie.
Yeah.
And it's even better in my mind than the OK Corral, because if you look at that, they shot at each other first. And some several yards apart. Then they ran for cover and shot behind something all the time. You know? But these guys just stood there, shot 23 shots.
Oh, my
That's what they
goodness.
did.
Yeah, I'd like to read that book.
Yeah.
And tell me the name of the book again.
23 shots. That's the name of
23
it.
shots. Okay.
Because when I saw how many times I shot, I thought that would be a good cover. And after that book came out, a guy in Gasway told me his dad was a postmaster in that building when that shootout happened.
I tell you, you read those old newspaper articles.
Oh.
It was like Wild West back then.
I'm telling you, those two boys that came up here, the Fleming brothers, I got there for bad boys now. They'd kill people everywhere. Thought nothing of it.
Well, we'll have to be on the outlook for that book. Well, Mack Samples, what's the future for you? What do you see happening here in the?
I'm just going to keep on doing what I'm always doing. As I said before, I don't ever promote myself and try to book myself anywhere, but I get a pretty steady stream of calls from people wanting me to do either present to a book club on my books, or sometimes to play some music. Yesterday I did both in Webster County, but I've gone out and have spoken to a lot of high school classes, and I still do that. And I still play if somebody wants me to come, and I still have a remnants of my band. There's three of us left, my son, me, and a guy named David Odell, who's from Glenville. And we played the Jubilee this past year, and we played some festivals this summer. But I'm not going to be nearly as active as I used to be.
How does someone get in contact with you if they'd like for you to come and talk to their book club? Or
I have if they just get on the internet and type in macksamples.com.
And it's M-A-C-K, right?
Yeah, M-A-C-K with a K. And I don't know where my mom got that name, but
I like it.
but anyway, that's what it is. So.
Well, we really appreciate you coming here, and you played for us here, and I was really appreciative of you doing that, and hope that you come back again someday. We'd love to have you back one day.
Well, if I'm not doing anything, I'll always come back. But as the boy said yesterday, when I left the high school, the guy came up, put his hand on his shoulder, and he said, "You're a pretty cool dude." I said, that might be the best compliment I ever had.
That's great. That means a lot, and you are. Well, Mack Samples, I'm going to say I'm afraid my time is up. Thank you so much for coming today, and hope that you'll come back. And I end every one of my shows by saying, make every day count, because you are making history today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
There's sweet music in the silence of your wildwood, to the rhythm played by every mountain stream. It becomes a lullaby every time that I come home to West Virginia in my dreams. West Virginia mountain melodies, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melodies. I feel secure in the arms of your green valley. There's a peace you've given me that's yours alone. Take me in like a child to the gentle of your wild West Virginia. I'm coming home. Your West Virginia mountain melodies, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain melody. West Virginia mountain melody, there's a new river singing to me. Oh, this time it's wild and free, your West Virginia mountain